Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Comprehensive manga. Wife Yang Nai, son.in.law under the snow. Because he didn't want to work hard, the time traveler under the name of Junsuke Hanyu and the senior girl control Yukino Uchiha registered their marriage. In order to revive the male character, Junsuke Hanyu embarked on the path of being the head of the family. But that's why. With so many butterflies around him, he clearly told them that he was married. Under the snow, Yang Nai. A group of fox spirits, dare to compete with me for a man. Everyone die for me. Xia Zhiqiu Shiyu. Yang Nai, can you divorce Junjie? Qian Fantian Aichi. It's clear that I came first. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. My wife is Yano under the snow. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In spring, during the season of awakening insects, Chiba happens to witness the first blooming of white cherry blossoms this year. Junsuke Hanyu walks slowly on the campus of Chiba University, admiring the unique green and mature temperament of the surrounding university students, as well as their big white legs. The choir sang in unison in the auditorium over there, with loud voices. On the sports field on the right, the management department and the literature department were engaged in a fierce battle. But these are not related to Junsuke Hanyu. He came just to meet someone and do something by the way. Although he thought it might not be possible, he had to give it a try to give up. Is there anything urgent about calling to see me? As soon as I stepped into the arranged courtyard, I heard inquiries from the arranged person. Junsuke Hanyu cast his gaze over. This was the first time he had looked at her after waking up. Although he had seen and read her many times in his memory, he would still be amazed by her beauty. Under the snow, Yoshino, the wife of Junsuke Hanyu. Or use a different word to describe a contracted couple. It is the kind of trick that was very popular in the romantic novels of the Qing dynasty in the past few years in the memory of Junsuke Hanyu, that is, the fake couple who signed a treaty. However, generally speaking, it is the domineering CEO's petite wife, and here he is the opposite. Junsuke Hanyu is not from the Department of Political Science and Law, but the agreement that was witnessed by a lawyer and signed fairly recently should be effective. He had originally planned to say something, but as soon as he saw her, he felt that what he wanted to do was unlikely to be successful. However, since he came, it would be better to say something. Can the agreement signed a few days ago still be terminated? Junsuke Hanyu asked very directly. Talking to Yukiya Yanaga, if not direct and following her style without wavering, it is easy to be controlled by her script and small movements, and she naturally has a natural talent for socializing. Did you regret it? Under the snow, Yang lifted her hair behind her ears, slightly tilting her head to reveal her fair neck, and smiled. I just think there might be a better way to choose, such as self-striving. Junsuke Hanyu shrugged in a joking tone. We have already registered our marriage. Under the snow, Yang Nai restrained his smile and looked at him lightly. She thought he was just joking. I didn't expect this to be really interesting. But wasn't the decision made earlier the optimal solution that had already been carefully considered? This guy's personality shouldn't change, right? Okay, I guess so. Junsuke Hanyu flicked his forehead, and the pain bounced away some of his embarrassment. A few days ago, Junsuke Hanyu and Yoshino Uchiha reached an agreement, signing a prenuptial agreement between the couple, which clearly stipulated various obligations, responsibilities, property allocation, and other matters. There is no need to describe the obligations and responsibilities of both husband and wife. The only thing worth noting is that Junsuke Hanyu and Yoshitaka Yukigawa did not truly love each other and entered the marriage hall. This is an agreement between both parties based on their interests. Under the snow, Yang is about to graduate and will officially take over the family business. Along the way, he needs a husband, as in some situations, only a man is most suitable to appear. And Junsuke Hanyu, on the other hand, is a young man who doesn't want to fight. After mutual investigation and careful consideration, he signed a marriage agreement with Yukino. That was Junsuke Hanyu before, and now he has acquired memories of his past life. Junsuke Hanyu, a time traveler, was reborn and his memory consciousness was dormant for more than 20 years. It wasn't until a few days ago that his consciousness was revived, and the two memories were mixed up and influenced each other to form a brand new personality. However, it is dominated by past life personality. How are you preparing for your graduation defense? He began to shift the topic. It went quite smoothly. Under the snow, Yang withdrew his gaze from exploring and surveying. Junsuke Hanyu always feels that the relationship between the two sides is very awkward. Perhaps it is because both sides are rational people that they sign agreements that others may laugh or cry at. After all, it's about taking what each person needs. He was ready to say goodbye. After all, this sudden meeting was originally an exploration and verification of his memory after his consciousness had awakened. Since he had already obtained the results, waiting too long was meaningless. Do you want to take a stroll together? Is this Jun's first time visiting Chiba University? Although it may not have the same profound background as the University of Tokyo, it is still the season when cherry blossoms bloom, and it is still very beautiful. Under the snow, young Nai issued an invitation. Junsuke Hanyu raised questions. You don't think we're too distant from each other? We don't seem like passionate lovers at all, let alone newlyweds. Under the snow, Yang said. After all, it was two people who chose to register their marriage due to their interests. As for their relationship, it does have a foundation. At least both sides need to have some good feelings for each other and not dislike each other in order to consider such things. But if we talk about how deep the relationship is, it's naturally impossible. After all, if it's really deep, it's just a true couple. What you said makes perfect sense. Junsuke Hanyu agreed. In fact, Junsuke Hanyu, who signed the agreement, was determined to sign this somewhat insulting agreement only after his own comprehensive consideration. For a man, marriage becoming a climbing rope is already a great blow to his self-esteem. But he has almost no relatives or connections, and apart from a few mentors or close friends at school, he comes from a welfare institution and has no social power to borrow. In such a situation, even if you graduate from Dongfeng University, it is really difficult to cross social classes in Neon. And registering a fake marriage with Xia Yang is a decision that can shorten at least 20 years of struggle. Although this decision may lead to many problems, in terms of results, it should have a positive impact on life. This was what Junsuke Hanyu had considered before, but after awakening from his memories before crossing the river, Junsuke Hanyu rejected this idea in just 3 seconds. Because this is a parallel world, there are too many new things, but there are also too many things that have not appeared. He can easily find opportunities from such differences, making himself worry-free and even becoming a person with great influence, although the process may be unexpectedly difficult. So do we need to hold hands? Couples always hold hands while strolling and admiring cherry blossoms, right? That's how it makes sense. Junsuke Hanyu smiled and joked, completely out of revenge for the calm and serious expression she had always had since her conversation. Let's go then. Her wrist was suddenly gripped, and a cold yet soft touch came from her palms. Then slowly climbed down the rock, palms clasped, and fingers interlocked. They have decided that both parties will inevitably exhibit behavior that aligns with their identity in front of outsiders, and any intimate contact resulting from this is considered necessary behavior. If I don't practice, I'm really afraid that one day you'll hold hands and I'll instinctively open you up. Under the snow, Yang met his puzzled gaze and said. I always feel like holding hands has changed its flavor. Junsuke Hanyu shook his head in response. Psychological reactions always affect the body's senses. Under the snow, Yang explained the sentence. In early March, at Chiba University, the cherry blossom buds can already be seen, and the campus with good greenery can be considered as long grass and birds flying. But the two people holding hands always make people feel that they are not in sync, as they look quite beautiful at first glance. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Respecting each other like a guest in a marital relationship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The unique soft touch that comes from the palm of his hand is unique to women, which makes Junsuke Hanyu somewhat curious. Whether in his past life memories or this life memories, holding hands with a girl is still his first experience. He suddenly became interested in the specific forms of physical gender differences between men and women, and will go to the science department in a few days to ask. Okay, he's just a little confused about the current situation. Although the overbearing CEO Xiaojiao's wife's writings that I have read in my past life are too simplistic and often lead to strange encounters due to readers liking them, Junsuke Hanyu's search for the way he interacted with Yoshino under the snow in his memory of this life did not find any evidence that would unfold as it does today. He always felt that their interaction would be the kind of mutual respect described in ancient Chinese, without delving into the literal meaning. However, how much does Junsuke Hanyu know about Yang under the snow? He suddenly burst into laughter, feeling like an eagle burping heavily. What are you laughing at? Under the snow, Yang was very curious. Her face remained unchanged, as if such contact did not cause any emotional fluctuations for her, but if someone truly understood her, they would find that her smile was not a perfect 45-degree angle, with flaws. I always find our state of being interesting, don't I? Junsuke Hanyu replied. It's really interesting. Under the snow, the sun harmonizes and offers a brand new experience. But what's even more interesting is that the person in front of him suddenly underwent a drastic change. Under the snow, Yang Nai squinted his eyes slightly and looked at his profile, his gaze deep as if penetrating his skin and soul. How could Xia Yang not be fully prepared to sign such a marriage agreement with someone who has no significant emotional foundation? Prior investigation, preparation, research, and even hiring a psychologist and behaviorist to conduct personality inversion until it is confirmed that the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks, and even if there are errors, they will still be under her control. She will then stamp her own seal on that agreement. But just a few days, can such a drastic change occur? Although some are out of control, it has to be said that this is very interesting. Junjie has always been very attentive to his words and expressions, and laughing without reason has never happened before. It's really interesting. Under the snow, Yang added. Junsuke Hanyu, to be precise, has never regained his memory. He has always been cautious and meticulous in managing behavior, speech, and discourse, which is determined by society and background. The more people at the bottom want to climb higher, the more attention they need to pay to all details. But after the memory was revived, everything changed. Marriage can bring significant changes to men. Generally speaking, before marriage, it is a boy, and after marriage, it is a man. Junsuke Hanyu talks nonsense. What makes me interesting is that Sang's attitude under the snow is surprisingly gentle, which is somewhat unexpected. Junsuke Hanyu questioned. It's very simple, because it's always something that needs to be experienced. It's something that needs to be gradually familiarized with, and after meeting parents for a while, they will still cohabit. Although it can be embarrassing, the first step is always to step out. Under the snow, Yang Nai smiled, but this time his smile seemed to be concealing something. Of course, the probing, interesting exploration, and the curiosity of cats play important roles. Junsuke Hanyu raised his eyebrows slightly, believing only 3 points in the authenticity of her words. If ordinary people only need to consider factors such as cause and effect and making a decision, then every decision made by Yanaga under the snow will always consider many things comprehensively, or just a simple idea. This is a person with extreme contradictions. There's a more natural way, isn't there? Junsuke Hanyu said. But it's a waste of time, isn't it? Under the snow, Yang asked in reverse. Okay, she's always someone who prioritizes efficiency, and of course, Junsuke Hanyu used to be the same. That's why she was able to naturally take marriage as a bargaining chip and count it one by one at the negotiation table. Junsuke Hanyu closed his mouth and planned to enjoy the scenery on the campus of Chiba University. The sunshine was warm, the beautiful women were by the side, and the gentle breeze was blowing. It was a good time to appreciate cherry blossoms, and we will discuss everything else later. Without words of tacit understanding, under the snow, Yang Na also stopped delving into the topic and walked side by side within the campus. As graduation season approaches, there are many couples on campus, and they are not eye-catching either. Occasionally, some idle people may attract attention due to their appearance. Strolling from the south gate to Chiba University tram station, Junsuke Hanyu planned to return to his own residence. Do we also need to be more romantic when saying goodbye? Junsuke Hanyu is curious about which step she can take. No matter what she thinks, she must also have extremely complex emotions after achieving this step, right? Whether it is an ordinary person or a person under the snow, marriage and love are directly deprived, and skin contact with people without sufficient emotional foundation always makes people feel shy and even nauseous. It must be done step by step. Under the snow, Yang shook his head. Instead, Junsuke Hanyu breathed a sigh of relief. This was great, and she was still a normal woman. How do you think Junjie Jun is actually happier? Under the snow, Yang tilted his gaze slightly. After all, the experience today was excellent. Junsuke Hanyu smiled and said. The sound of the progress of the tram kept ringing, and Junsuke Hanyu waved goodbye to Yoshino under the snow and embarked on the journey back home. Under the snow, Yang Nai also waved goodbye. The tram rushed away, and she restrained her smile, rubbed her facial muscles, and put on a perfect smile to return to campus. Junsuke Hanyu was unaware of her reaction after he left. Sitting on the tram, he pinched his nose and pondered through the crowded but not very noisy tram. Although the process was a bit strange, overall, his purpose of coming to Chiba University to see Yanaga under the snow this time has been achieved. After the memory was revived, Junsuke Hanyu spent more than a day organizing his memories. It was unclear whether it was the benefit of reincarnation or the automated response of brain function. Those memories were classified neatly like those proficient in the memory palace technique, without causing too much confusion. There is no drastic change or confrontation in personality fusion, and it naturally merges like water dissolved in the sea. Junsuke Hanyu spent a few more days familiarizing himself with his circle before embarking on a journey to face what he believed to be the most important person. Yoshino under the snow. Junsuke Hanyu's birth is unknown, and he has been living in a welfare home in Chiba since his memory, and has since grown up, thanks to the blessing of being reborn through time travel. Even if the consciousness is asleep, there are always scattered memories that will scatter, making the unawakened Junsuke Hanyu overly precocious. Therefore, with his own abilities and some financial support, he successfully passed high school and arrived at Tokyo University smoothly. Subsequently, he naturally thrived until now undergoing his studies as a monk. The sound of the train arriving at the station stopped Junsuke Hanyu from organizing his thoughts. The sorting out of interpersonal relationships has been preliminarily completed, and the next step should also begin. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Me, Junsuke Hanyu, now I just want to make money. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In Bunkyo-ku, Tokyo, in an apartment next to the University of Tokyo, Junsuke Hanyu sat at his desk, holding a pen in his hand and pondering. It is said to be a desk, but in fact, it is a comprehensive integration of dining and desk. This is just a 1 LDK single apartment, specifically designed for renting out to students studying at Dongfeng University. What kind of world this is indescribable, and where the fork in the river of time lies is unknown. In short, Many new things have emerged, and many things from his past life memories have also disappeared. After all, the sun under the snow is actually the most obvious example. Was she the wife of the anime paper man in the previous life? But now is the real wife. A respectful and courteous marital relationship, Junsuke Hanyu wrote the first line of words. He speculated from his original memory and memories of works he had read in his past life that meeting and getting along with Yano under the snow would be quite difficult, but he did not expect it to be a state of tacit understanding and mutual respect between the two sides. Shouldn't a son-in-law be despised by his wife? Wives shouldn't be extremely aloof and proud, right? The kind of words that are too lazy to say. Junsuke Hanyu couldn't help but laugh. After all, he had seen the ancient version of the son-in-law in his past life, and perhaps the modern version should be like this. If you have a relationship with the opposite sex that goes beyond friendship, be sure to inform them. He wrote the second line of words. This is explicitly stipulated in the marriage agreement, and of course, the terms there state that both spouses should fulfill the obligations of marital loyalty in accordance with the marriage law. The attached details are as follows. The reason why Junsuke Hanyu regards Yukiyoshi as the most important person he meets after his memory recovers is because he and Yukiyoshi have already been closely connected due to that agreement, let alone they have already registered at the marriage registration office. From a legal perspective, Junjie Hanyu should now change his name to Junjie Shueisha, as he is already married. Alternatively, under the snow, On Nai could change his name to Yu Xingyang Nai, but this is a daunting challenge. But he is still a single dog who has never even had a romantic relationship. It is temporarily impossible to terminate the agreement. Junsuke Hanyu wrote the third line of characters. The original memory had already been told to Junsuke Hanyu, but he still didn't give up and went to see Yano under the snow, but the result did not surprise him. After graduation, Yukigawa Yoshitaka will officially join the Yukigawa group as a physician and also work as an in-service monk at Chiba University. Similar to Junsuke Hanyu's current situation, he works for a magazine and is studying as a monk under the Kawabata mentor of the Faculty of Literature at the University of Tokyo. Of course, this is a different form of in-service graduate student system from the previous dynasties. As far as Junsuke Hanyu knows, Junsuke Hanyu's parents have already learned about his existence, which means that Junsuke Hanyu's boyfriend, fiancé, and even marriage partner have been tacitly approved by them. Junsuke Hanyu was too lazy to investigate what kind of family would have such a way of getting along, because under the snow, Yoshino was not a normal person. Under the snow, it is impossible for Yang to change his contractual relationship with Junsuke Hanyu, and this is not something that Junsuke Hanyu can change with just one heart. If you want to force a change, you will need a considerable sum of money. Moreover, Junsuke Hanyu does not want to display a completely different personality from his predecessor in front of people who know him well. If it was time to travel and become attached to an unfamiliar person, he would definitely choose to give up all his social status and start his own life. But Junsuke Hanyu is him, he is Junsuke Hanyu. His predecessor was just a natural derivative of his body formed by his conscious sleep, and now Junsuke Hanyu is Junsuke Hanyu. The agreement stamped with Junsuke Hanyu's seal, both logically and legally, requires his responsibility. Other interpersonal relationships do not need to be deliberately sorted out. Junsuke Hanyu wrote the fourth line of characters. As an orphan, Junsuke Hanyu does not have a family. His life circle consists only of school, company, and family, while the people he meets include mentors, classmates, friends, and colleagues. After not having relatives, interpersonal relationships become very clear and clear. In the past few days, Junsuke Hanyu has become familiar with his mentor and classmates. Although there have been some slight changes, they have not been considered to have any flaws. Pursuing Junsuke Hanyu wrote the last line of text, then tore off the page and ignited it to classify it into its own garbage classification. Maslow's theory of needs has briefly divided human pursuits into 5 levels, and physiological needs need not be further mentioned. Junsuke Hanyu has reached this level. But safety needs are a problem, and personal safety and health protection cannot be achieved by renting a one-bedroom apartment. As for the higher social needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization needs, it goes without saying. Of course, these needs are not implemented at each level, except for the physiological needs at the first level. The realization of other needs is parallel. Junsuke Hanyu clearly remembers the balance in his bank card, which is 1.25 million yen. This is still his savings after working for a magazine for 6 months, although it is not a small amount, but compared to the housing prices in Tokyo, it still appears very humble. So the urgent task is very obvious, earning money and then seeking other things. In his past life, Junsuke Hanyu was a street-fighting online writer who lacked any professional skills. In this lifetime, Junsuke Hanyu studied at the University of Tokyo, the highest institution of Nihon, with a high degree, but only in the Department of Literature. Creation. Junsuke Hanyu's mind came up with this word. Whether it's stocks, lotteries, or gambling, these things are all chaotic and unclear. Moreover, in his past life, he never had any exposure to these fast ways of earning money. As for methods such as virtual currency or others, he really doesn't have the knowledge in this area in his memory. And even though this life is now in 2010, many things from 15 years ago have already appeared. Creation. Things that require no capital, one pen and one brain, including but not limited to light novels, popular literature, serious literature, scripts, and other forms. Junsuke Hanyu believes that this old profession can be taken up, but it needs to be investigated first. Although there are many memories about the development of world literature and the Nihon literary world, my personal memory is not comprehensive enough. Junsuke Hanyu opened his computer and searched for literary classifications, including the development history, the formation and development of various literary categories, representative works of writers, and the current state of development. Almost finished searching, Junsuke Hanyu was preparing to self-search his memory to see where to look when his phone called. Correspondent. Akira Chianti. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. Qian Fantian Aichi's Care. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chihiro Tanaka is a classmate of Junsuke Hanyu, or more precisely, a classmate from the same research laboratory. Nihon graduate students are referred to as cultivators, and the entry of cultivators is divided into various research rooms and guided by mentors in small classes. To be honest, this is not a good system because the power of student life and death is completely in the hands of the mentor, and countless dirty affairs arise every year as a result. But on the surface, Tohoku University is still accepting, and Junsuke Hanyu's luck is also good. His mentor, Kawabata, is a kind-hearted male, and he is also kind to these students. The agreed meeting place was a tea house on Dongao University Street, where Chihiro Tanaka was particularly fond of the neon tea ceremony in her home country and did not like coffee and other drinks. Junsuke Hanyu actually finds his social circle quite interesting, as he can see many familiar people from his past lives, and of course, they also have various changes, but such unfamiliar familiarity gave him a sense of temporal and spatial confusion, occasionally feeling lonely. Good afternoon. Chihiro Akira greeted him and knelt down across from him. Good afternoon. Junsuke Hanyu smiled and waved. She is a very standard and gentle beauty, with beautiful long hair draped over her shoulders, delicate facial features, bright and lively eyes, as well as a beautiful figure and elegant posture. Of course, the most admirable thing about her is the unique and elegant temperament of a lady from a wealthy family. Junsuke Hanyu filled her cup with tea and made a gesture of invitation. This is a research paper I have recently prepared on the practical application of scandalous sentences in daily life. Chihiro Tanaka took out a stack of documents from her shoulder bag. This is the reason for their meeting, as they need to submit a final assignment in the near future. Nihon University is divided into 2 semesters, and the final exams are usually held in January and February. However, there are also those who delay until early March, as many mentors do not have time to take care of students. Junsuke Hanyu and Akira Chianti's mentor Kawabata flew to Oxford, London to exchange ideas a month ago. Although they have been remotely managing their studies, some things always need to be done in person, such as final assignments. It's still possible, but there are some flaws in the way we argue here. Although Junsuke Hanyu graduated from university in his previous life, he was not in the field of literature. However, in this life, Junsuke Hanyu is indeed a talented student in literature, otherwise he would not have been enrolled as a working monk by his mentor. Neon does not have the same on.the.job graduate system as in China. The so-called on.the.job system means that you need to discuss with your supervisor and future boss, work a few days a week in the research room, and neither side will miss work. Junsuke Hanyu and Akira Chianti were classmates during their bachelor's degree, and they were fortunate enough to be assigned to a research laboratory during their cultivator stage, so their relationship was quite good. The two of them discussed for a while and felt that they had both gained something from each other, creating a harmonious atmosphere. Has something happened to Yushinsang these days? Qian Fantian Aichi took a sip of tea and casually asked. Why do you ask that? Junsuke Hanyu tightened his body, but his face remained calm and he smiled instead. Your speech report yesterday was a bit off par. If it weren't for some innovative ideas during the quiz, the teacher would probably have asked you to redo it. Qian Fantian Aichi said. That's because although memories are familiar, it's still inevitable to feel a bit nervous, and getting used to it always takes time. If you need any help, don't keep it a secret. Her already big eyes widened and appeared even more lively, filled with concern. Junsuke Hanyu is sometimes curious about how the proportion of her cheeks and facial features is so large yet her eyes are still very delicate. He always thinks that this can be used to create a new series of character designs in anime, such as the Kyoto face. Of course. He smiled and nodded. When it comes to tea houses, it always reminds people of Mahjong in S province. Only then do tea houses make people feel like a secluded and elegant place. The sound of silk and bamboo in a piano music room isolated in the center is continuous, and when it comes to this place, it appears somewhat faint and long-lasting, adding a touch of seclusion. How has Yushinsang been working lately? Have you seen any good new books? Eat some and fruit, the topic continues, but it seems a bit casual. Junsuke Hanyu works for Shincho Society, but he is not the two flagship weekly magazines of Shincho Society. Instead, he serves as the editor-in-chief of the monthly magazine Novel Shincho. The Neon Workplace is a place that places great emphasis on qualifications, but education ranks first in terms of qualifications, which is contradictory yet in line with social norms. There's nothing interesting, I'm planning to start writing by myself. Junsuke Hanyu shook his head. Those memories now belong to Junsuke Hanyu, and when recalled, they appear clear and natural. There must be no problem with Yushinsang's words. Actually, I always thought you could give it a try. Chihiro Tanaka's eyes are brighter. The literary department of East University has always been famous for producing writers, artists, celebrities, and politicians, but writers are the most among them, comparable only to the Faculty of Literature at Kyoto University. Where's Qian Fantian Sang? Don't take the written test. Anyway, while chatting, Junsuke Hanyu also casually talked about it. I think it's good, there's really no passion for creation. She shook her head. Chihiro Tanaka is a very strange person. As far as Junsuke Hanyu remembers, she came from a powerful family in Takayama City, and if you have to compare her, she is a very strange person. Compared to the snow under home, it is much more powerful, but he didn't learn anything about management. But she chose the literature department according to her preferences. Generally, people who choose the literature department like to write, but she is particularly different. She likes to read things, especially to discover new and interesting books. Junsuke Hanyu has automatically blocked and ignored the things about them from his past life memories. How could the real world be like in anime works? After chatting for a while, the two bid farewell to each other, and Junsuke Hanyu returned to his own home. In the previous plan, I worked at a magazine for 2 years to investigate market trends, reader preferences, and trends before officially starting writing. Then, I started to make a name for myself with my work, supplemented by promotional assistance from Snow's home, and finally switched to politics. This is a path that shines brightly, and Junsuke Hanyu is actually curious about how his derivative personality would look. He takes 10 steps to do things and is exceptionally steady. When Junsuke Hanyu signed that agreement, he had already planned his road thoroughly, but now he has other plans. People love taking shortcuts because it gives them a strange sense of superiority. Under the snow, Yoshino Hanyu has a strange feeling when he thinks of her. Getting married first and then falling in love is really fashionable and trendy. He spread out his notebook and wrote down his ideas. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. Dating with Yano under snow. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Under the snow, Yang Na's words have always been fulfilled, and she is such a person. In front of the gate of Chiba University, Junsuke Hanyu stood by leaning against the railing, watching the people coming and going, occasionally looking up at the time. At 13:00, very precise, Yang appeared in front of him under the snow. A loose white T-dot shirt with bare shoulders, a black suspender wrapped around the fair neck, and standard denim pants paired with a pair of plain sandals. This outfit looks very ordinary, and Junsuke Hanyu knows that its value has exceeded at least 200,000 yen. This was a precursor research, and he was skilled at judging a person's wealth and status through decoration. Junsuke Hanyu inherited this ability. Junsuke Hanyu smiled and waved his hand, while Yoshino smiled under the snow. They resolved in the agreement that both parties will make every effort to cultivate their relationship in tacit agreement, in order to promote the practicality of this marriage as much as possible, because this is a resolution that fully aligns with the interests of both parties. Junsuke Hanyu also expressed agreement at that time. In fact, Junsuke Hanyu is not very willing to use her rare rest time on dates now, but she is indeed quite beautiful and a bit fragrant, and he thinks their current state is very interesting. After awakening his memory, Junsuke Hanyu's fundamental idea, apart from various pursuits, is to enjoy life, and interesting things cannot be missed. Of course, reviving memories and giving away a wife can make single dogs happier. Junsuke Hanyu works for a weekly magazine, and his working hours are every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, while his school hours are 1, 2, and 3, which means Sunday is his rest time. However, the good thing about being a cultivator is that researching topics is not necessary to stay in the research room every day. It is also possible to take some leisure time in the afternoon to go out and cultivate relationships with Yano under the snow for a date. What topics are usually discussed at this time? Taking a few steps shoulder to shoulder, crossing the overpass to the street, Yang said under the snow. Although it may be embarrassing to say it, I am truly a tough lover. Junsuke Hanyu has a lot of theoretical and practical things in his mind, and he is the one who gives advice to others. However, when he tries to operate it himself, he gets a bit stuck. Ha! Under the snow, Yang Nai stopped and leaned over closer to carefully scrutinize, shaking his head. It's not very similar. It's unlikely for a girl to confess like this. Under the snow, Yang is very convinced that this society is a society of beauty. As long as it looks good, even if it is abnormal, there is no problem. What you said is very reasonable, but it's really difficult to find a girl who is good-looking, has a good figure, comes from a privileged family, and has a good personality. Moreover, dating during high school or college is just a waste of time. Junsuke Hanyu summarized his experience in one sentence. Junsuke Hanyu believes that dating in high school and college is a waste of time and appears foolish. Even if there are eligible girls, it is difficult to believe that they can make decisions about their marriage. Therefore, he has always remained single, focusing his time and energy on improving himself in the hope of achieving higher quality by fume. Such as Yano under the snow, of course, this refers to a secondary personality. Do you think I'm quite rare when you say that? Under the snow, Yang Nai pondered and felt that what he said was very reasonable. To be precise, it's a golden legend. Junsuke Hanyu had a sincere expression. To be honest, if he continues according to his previous plan, Junsuke Hanyu may not enjoy what it means to be in a passionate relationship, but it must be a fulfilling life. Social status, material satisfaction, and corresponding respect needs are not issues. And Xue Xiaoyang is a quite rational person, and there is no need to worry about wearing a green hat or anything like that. Overall, Xue Xiaoyang is a perfect marriage partner. So what should we talk about now? She smiled and then asked the question again. Junsuke Hanyu raised his eyebrows and gestured to her. Don't ask me, I'm also struggling with love. Under the snow, the sun shrugged its shoulders. The atmosphere suddenly fell silent, and after taking a few steps forward, Junsuke Hanyu couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Under the snow, Yang asked. Thinking of happy things. Junsuke Hanyu thinks his vision is quite impressive. What? She appeared very curious. We seem to be very similar in all aspects, quite compatible. Junsuke Hanyu looked into her eyes. Under the snow, Yang Na paused and laughed. How can we achieve tacit understanding if we are not of the same kind? She asked in reverse. Junsuke Hanyu shrugged and didn't say anything more. Shouldn't we hold hands now? He shook his fingers. Isn't it too impolite to ask directly like this? Under the snow, Yang shook his head. Today's goal is to cultivate a romantic relationship, which is not very straightforward. The two continued to move forward, and Junsuke Hanyu slowly approached her. His arms swayed slightly as he moved forward, brushing past each other time and time again. Then, he suddenly grasped and slowly opened his fingers, interlocking them. This feeling is indeed a bit unique. The feeling of rapid heartbeat and fever on the face is unforgettable. Yes. She also responded softly, looking straight ahead. The sunlight came from the side, and Junsuke Hanyu always felt her cheeks glowing. It's hard for Junsuke Hanyu to imagine that the two of them would go out on dates and do things that ordinary couples would do, but upon careful consideration, most of the things that couples do on dates are highly similar, right? From the south gate of Chiba University, take a bus to Chiba City Park, where Junsuke Hanyu and Yoshino Yukigawa stroll along the forest path. The neon is commendable for the extremely efficient greenery in this steel city. Although these greeneries are also planned and lack natural and wild vitality, they are ultimately green. Chiba Park is a great attraction that both locals and outsiders choose to visit. So many rooftops sell food or play, similar to the streets of fireworks festivals. I thought Sang wouldn't like these things under the snow. Junsuke Hanyu always finds it a bit funny. He thought foods like octopus grill and grilled corn wouldn't catch her eye. Oh, and there are also things like potato chips and cola. Junsuke Hanyu increasingly feels that he cannot judge her based on his memory of her. In the future, he should think twice when speaking and doing things. After all, the existence of those memories will affect his attitude towards her. Not very ladylike, right? But the taste is really good. The potato chips made a clicking sound in her mouth as she was being chewed. I think it's very interesting and cute. Junsuke Hanyu is actually quite afraid that Yanaga under the snow is that kind of tall, cold, and proud strong woman type, and also worried that her personality is that kind of bumpy stone that smells and is hard. Under the snow like this now, Yang Nai will not have to go to great lengths to terminate this agreement, but will walk and see first. The phone rang and suddenly remembered the phone from Yano under the snow. Junsuke Hanyu took the phone from her hand and made it convenient for her to answer the phone. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. Under the Snow of Picking Up Treasures, Yang Na. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Watching Yukigawa Yoshino answer the phone, Junsuke Hanyu felt bored. Waiting for others to call was actually quite boring, especially when his own hand was still occupied and he couldn't play with his phone. After meeting with Akira Chianti the day before yesterday, Junsuke Hanyu has set the tone of his life. Just maintain the same attitude towards Chihiro Tanaka, his mentor, and other friends as before. Those who are friends are still friends, and there is no need to deliberately change because of memory recovery, because Junsuke Hanyu was also him before, and Junsuke Hanyu is also him now. And among them, the most complex one involved is Shino under the snow. Junsuke Hanyu originally intended to lift the agreement and walk half the way towards the sky, but currently, this idea is not feasible, so, when it is necessary to maintain the agreement, it is not excessive to use this agreement to gain some benefits, is it? After all, so far he will cooperate well with Yukino under the agreement, which is a very laborious thing. However, Junsuke Hanyu does not want to change his name to Junsuke Shueisha. He thinks that the surname Hanyu sounds quite nice, which is better than that of Junsuke Shueisha. Ah. He looked a bit bored. She had been on the phone for too long, and now that the conversation was over, she was nodding her head. Junsuke Hanyu simply pinched a potato chip and fed it to her mouth. It was just a boring prank, but under the snow, Yannai glanced at him and naturally bit it and ate it inside. Okay, Junsuke Hanyu looks at her and thinks she can be quite cute at times, but when he thinks about it, he's just an underage college student. Even if she's socializing with her family, girls always have good habits. Junsuke Hanyu has also pondered why Yoshino is willing to sign an agreement with him under the snow, and he does not reject the intimate contact of holding hands, and is willing to show another side in front of him. Some have been thoroughly pondered, while others are still unclear. But interpersonal relationships are not always easy to figure out, and Junsuke Hanyu felt that as long as he remained vigilant, he would avoid being sold by Yanaga under the snow. After wandering around for several minutes, her phone hung up. It seems like it's something from your company's side. Junsuke Hanyu casually found a topic and returned all her happy food to her. Under the snow, Yang just nodded without any intention of elaborating. Since the millennium, it seems that the construction industry has been in a slump. Junsuke Hanyu used a questioning tone, because in his past life memories, the construction industry of Neon was indeed like this, but he had not yet understood the construction industry of Neon in this world. It should be said that it is quite sluggish. Under the snow, Yang was not surprised why he, as a person from the literary department, knew about the construction industry. She could investigate him, and he could naturally investigate her, but the information obtained varied depending on the different status and resources. Junsuke Hanyu was a street-fighting online writer in his past life. Online writers have a distinct characteristic, which is that they understand a lot. Although they may only be theoretical arguments, in order to write things that seem logical but not logical, online writers often search for a lot of information, and the more topics they write, the more knowledgeable they become. Junsuke Hanyu once wrote a Japanese entertainment novel that involved some plot points in the construction industry, so he searched for some information and still remembers some. We should have recovered a bit in the past 2 years, right? Junsuke Hanyu can't remember very clearly. A little bit, it's not very clear, and no matter how you look at it, it feels like it's just a struggle. Under the snow, Yannai shook his head and said. Not necessarily, why don't we get up for another Olympics or something? Junsuke Hanyu casually mentioned. Speaking of how many years has it been since the successful bid for the Tokyo Olympics? Junsuke Hanyu feels that his memory is not very good, although the things in his past life memories may not necessarily be the same in this world. If that's the case, it seems true. Under the snow, Yang was lost in thought. Has Yu Xingjun studied the construction industry and economics? Just a little stunned, she smiled again. Some of it involved searching for some information when creating. Junsuke Hanyu found a reason to round it up. Do you think there is a high probability of Tokyo's successful bid for the Olympics? Under the snow, Yang Nai smiled and asked. There was a bench in front of her, so she paused and took out a tissue to wipe it. The two of them sat down together. Junsuke Hanyu recalled, based on past life memories, should the current Prime Minister of Neon be Koizumi or who? But it can never be Abe. This guy is still recovering in the hospital, but memories tell him that the current Prime Minister is really Abe. There's no point discussing this kind of thing with me, is there? Junsuke Hanyu is a bit hesitant to discuss these things in detail, because those memories take root in his mind and conversations are often unconsciously used, but the world is different. Some things may be fake, while others may still be the same. Sometimes the onlookers have a clear view, and Yu Xingjun is a top student at Dongda. There must be different opinions from above, right? Under the snow, Yang explained with a smile. Junsuke Hanyu shrugged and there was nothing more to say when it came to this matter. Please let me know in advance that this is random nonsense and lacks authenticity. He received a preventive injection. Of course, I'm just listening and believing. Under the snow, the sun is my thought. In fact, I think there is a high possibility of Tokyo's successful bid for the Olympics. Junsuke Hanyu said. It seems that Tokyo's bid for the Olympics has nothing to do with a real estate developer like Xia Zhiqiu's family. Actually, different countries have different national conditions. But to put it simply, if you succeed in applying for the Olympics, you have to build various venues. The Olympic Committee has very strict requirements for venues, and most of them have to be newly built, and corresponding transportation facilities and public facilities should also be equipped. This is an international political show, and investment return rate is secondary. The most important thing is to showcase the image to gain political benefits and other hidden benefits. But some countries are different. They can use the Olympics as a tool to give wings to the economy, with neon lights at the forefront. For example, during the decade when the neon economy took off, the Olympic Games played a crucial role. Because the lost decade has now turned into 20 years, and even rising, the new Prime Minister has promised to solve the problem of economic growth. Junsuke Hanyu pointed it out. That makes a lot of sense, Yu Xingjun. Under the snow, the sun shimmered with radiance, the strange glow of seeing fun toys. She feels like she found a treasure. I thought it was just a second prize, but now I vaguely see the words of the golden legend. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. Starting today, I will be working on copying official documents. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After playing for a while in the afternoon, Junsuke Hanyu and Yoshino Yukigawa bid farewell and left separately. He sent her to Chiba University and took the tram back to his single apartment in Wenjing. Today's date, he thought it was just two people trying to cultivate a rigid relationship, but he didn't expect it to be quite harmonious. However, when two intelligent and rational people work together in perfect harmony, the atmosphere can be considered normal. But what Junsuke Hanyu didn't expect was that it would involve economic issues in the construction industry. This industry is the pillar of Neon's economy, and the construction and real estate industry in China already accounts for a considerable proportion of the national economy. However, Neon's influence is even greater. Moreover, due to historical reasons, the construction industry will only continue to decline. Currently, the proposed solutions have negative effects, and Junsuke Hanyu is not a professional in this field. How can he know how this industry can transform and upgrade? And he deeply understands that things from his past life memories may not necessarily be reasonable in this world, so it's better to say less. Finally, Junsuke Hanyu was not very satisfied with today's date, which greatly dampened his enthusiasm. The reason why he is willing to spend time playing such a bit of a family-style game with Yano under the snow is because last time he walked hand in hand on the campus of Chiba University, he captured some feelings of love. If we have to calculate, it seems like he is already a single dog in his 40s. I have some longing for things with sour odors, and under the snow, Yannai is quite beautiful and a bit fragrant. But during today's date, the sudden topic that came up made him realize that he and Yukiya Yanaga were still just people who were united based on their interests. The feeling of love was purely due to his overthinking, and he changed the tone of dealing with Yukiya Yanaga. Try to cooperate with the agreement, work as much as possible without affecting yourself, and let go of everything else. Dine, wash, take a bath, sit on the bed, with a desk on the bed in front of you. Junsuke Hanyu is not a child anymore, so he knows deeply what is the most essential thing, and his own strength is the best strength, so he needs to spend some time improving himself. The only thing he is familiar with is creation, and only this thing is something he is slightly confident in handling. After integrating memories, Junsuke Hanyu is confident that he can write things in a beautiful parallel style, so creation is something that is on the agenda and can be achieved. Through time travel, so far I have not found any golden fingers that are unforgettable or remember every word in my past life. Therefore, the greatest use of my past life memory is probably to provide him with inspiration. Non-natural death. He picked up a pen and wrote down the title in his notebook. Junsuke Hanyu has conducted a comprehensive investigation into the development of the world's neon cultural industry by organizing his memories and conducting online searches. He is quite confident about the upcoming book. Non-Natural Death was a popular national drama about neon in its past life, focusing on the high non-natural mortality rate caused by neon. It focused on the phenomenon of many people writing about the causes of death after death due to the extremely lack of neon forensic doctors. Once broadcasted, the ratings exploded. The neon forensic doctors in the world still have no sense of the lack of this, and the annual suicide rate is still high. Yushing Junjie thinks that this idea should be able to cause a hot spot when it is written. As for whether to write something else to warm up, Rocket keeps it for use, and he has considered this idea. But on second thought, it's not that the novel needs to form a logical closed loop. Without Rocket's fame first, how can we mix the contributions, how can we mix the names, and how can we improve our status? It's not that the novel needs to be upgraded, but it needs to be written according to the popularity. Junsuke Hanyu has a bad habit of writing, which is that he doesn't like to outline things, and as for detailed outlines, they are even more difficult to see, so in his past life, his novels have been criticized for their scattered plot and broken rhythm, while in this life, they have not been improved. Junsuke Hanyu may not remember the plot of the original film, but it doesn't matter. He tells a story about a forensic expert focusing on various non-natural death cases, which is still within his ability. However, the selection of cases must be representative, with both depth and breadth. Yuko Hiroki has always remembered the surprised looks from her teachers, classmates, and even parents when she worked in this industry, as if in their eyes, doctors were just doctors who could only save lives and heal the wounded. How could there be a branch of forensic medicine? She used to feel the same way, but that person's deafening words still lingered in her ears. For the rights of the living, for the words of the dead. This is forensic medicine. In a blink of an eye, after all these years, she is also coming to UDI to report today. Junsuke Hanyu writes the opening, which is also one of his habits. At the beginning, he directly tells the story, and then explains the character settings and so on. The beginning of a new book is always able to be written very quickly, because at this time, there is always a lot of room for free expression regardless of whether there is an outline or not, and writing freely is naturally efficient. From 7 o'clock to just over 10 o'clock, Junsuke Hanyu roughly wrote the first case and spent another hour refining it before falling asleep. It was early morning when he woke up, and his body's biological clock made him automatically open his eyes at 7:30 a.m. Then, he washed and dressed, brought his manuscript, and headed straight to the novel's trendy editorial department. Weeks 4, 5, and 6 are his working hours in the novel and trendy editing department. Generally speaking, Junsuke Hanyu comes here because he is in a special situation, unlike other editors who work full-time, so he needs to be more proactive during those few working days. He has been working in the novel trend for half a year now, and the people around him are also familiar. He is lucky, and his colleagues are not particularly mentally disabled. It is not said that because he only works for 3 days, he is not satisfied with various difficult situations. His boss also values him very much, otherwise he wouldn't be happy with this work mode. First, he cleaned the editorial department, then brewed coffee and placed a cup on each editor's table. Junsuke Hanyu then sat in his seat and started working. Newcomers in the workplace should have a positive attitude, otherwise it is easy to be out of sync, and not being compatible means that the workplace will be quite challenging. Until around 9 o'clock, people began to come one after another. Junsuke Hanyu would take the initiative to say hello and ask a question mark, and everyone would smile and chat, without anyone being suspicious. Until it was close to 10 o'clock, Junsuke Hanyu finally waited for the person he had to wait for, the editor-in-chief, Junichi Tani. Suspending work, taking the manuscript, Junsuke Hanyu knocked on the editor's door. "Please come in." Junsuke Hanyu pushed the door in. Yushin-sang. "What, have you encountered any problems?" Tiani-chun asked with a smile. "I have a manuscript in hand and would like to ask the editor-in-chief of Tiani to help me take a look." Junsuke Hanyu nodded. "Sit down first." Taking over the manuscript, Tiani-chun said. "Non-natural death, is this name quite interesting? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Invitation from Yang Nai under the snow. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In less than 10 minutes, Tiani-chun finished reading the already thin manuscript. Is this manuscript newly received? Is there any follow-up? He appeared somewhat eager to see what was right. What do the editor-in-chief Tiani think of this manuscript? Junsuke Hanyu appeared not in a hurry and did not answer the question directly. Very impressive article. If it weren't for my poor writing style, I would have thought it was someone else's work. Tiani editor-in-chief has been in the industry for nearly 20 years, with rich experience and a good perspective. So which writer's work is this? He appeared very curious. Most editors are actually literary enthusiasts and have a creative dream. They only choose to become editors because they cannot create popular works, so most editors are bookworms who are extremely fond of truly excellent and impressive works, excluding online literature. Actually, this is what I wrote. Junsuke Hanyu coughed lightly. Ha! Tiani-chun's face was a bit strange, but it wasn't a shock or any other emotion, but a look of finally being there. Tiani editor-in-chief doesn't seem very surprised. Junsuke Hanyu appeared somewhat curious. Yushin-sang, you are a graduate of Tohoku University, and Professor Chuanduan highly praised you when he recommended you to me, so I have never doubted your creative ability. I am just curious why you chose to become an editor directly. Tiani-chun gave a brief explanation. So those who come from Dongda University can do whatever they want. Junsuke Hanyu originally wanted to laugh, but after thinking about it, it seemed like this was really the case. The reason why his colleagues were able to easily accept him was also because his education was high enough. So is this novel intended to be published in our magazine? Tiani Pure straightens his waist and back. I have this plan. Since I showed it to the editor-in-chief, Junsuke Hanyu naturally had this plan. And it's also important to first look at the reactions of industry insiders to determine if this book has the potential to sell well. Although experienced authors can determine the general potential when an idea comes out, Junsuke Hanyu is not familiar with the neon literature world and physical literature, so he's not very sure. Although I think there must be no problem with your work, if you want to publish it, you still need to discuss it in the editorial meeting. Tianyi-chun said. This is the rule of the novel trend, and any novel works that want to be published need to be discussed through an editorial meeting. The general process is that each editor will select a few works, then explain the selling points and interesting points, everyone will raise their hands to vote, and then the editor-in-chief will make a decision. I understand. Junsuke Hanyu nodded. So what about the follow-up to this work? Have you written it well? Tianyi stared at him intently. I haven't started writing yet, after all, I don't know what the future holds. Junsuke Hanyu smiled awkwardly. Also, Tianyi-chun also smiled. Yushin-sang, do you think our country's unnatural mortality rate is really as high as what you said in your book? He suddenly asked. Let's get the data close. Junsuke Hanyu is not surprised that he would ask. Intellectuals and the middle class always like to pay attention to these things. What are you saying about our country? Tianyi-chun doesn't know if she's asking Junsuke Hanyu or asking herself. Farewell to the editor-in-chief, Junsuke Hanyu returned to his office and continued working. Novel Trend is a monthly magazine, so work is not too busy. Although Junsuke Hanyu is still a newcomer in the workplace, he has 6 months of work experience, so there are not many setbacks. The job of an editor is actually quite tedious, with the core job being to read and select works. At first, this job was enthusiastic, but with more, it became dull and numb, because not every work can be read well, and most of the submitted works are often nonsensical. It's okay to just return them. The works that have some level but still have shortcomings are the ones that make editors feel the most uncomfortable. It requires communication with the author, urging them to improve, and so on, which is very annoying. Of course, there is also a direct way to get by. If you have a work in hand, you can submit it. If you don't, it's fine. However, a portion of the performance commission in an editor's salary is measured by publication effectiveness and reader survey rankings, so exploring more works is definitely beneficial. Editing work does not require staying in the editorial department all day like regular work, and often requires going out to communicate with authors, collect manuscripts, etc. Relatively speaking, the time spent in the editorial department is usually not much. As a newcomer who has only been working for half a year, Junsuke Hanyu currently does not have a fixed serial author in his hands. Every month, he mines his works through email submissions, website submissions, and other means. Read your work according to the old rules, then classify it according to its level. If it is not pleasing to the eye, simply throw it aside. When the work is about to end, send a group email informing you that your work still needs to work hard to be accepted. Then there are works of a slightly higher level, with a few suggestions and the like, which can be quite laborious. Then there are excellent works, analyze the highlights that were discussed at the conference. Lunch was resolved through a bento at a convenience store under the building, and the end of working hours was around 5 p.m. Junsuke Hanyu tidied up the editorial department before finally leaving. Social animal work is often tiring, mechanical, and boring, so Junsuke Hanyu chose to become an online writer in his past life. After all, being able to decide on his own work hours is already a very comfortable thing. Just as he was about to find a place to relax, the phone rang and Junsuke Hanyu took it out to take a look at Yoshino under the snow. Hello. He connected. Hello. Yushin sang. Under the snow, Yang Na's voice came from the phone. What's up? Junsuke Hanyu asked, feeling a bit lazy to deal with the fatigue. If it were my predecessor, I would still treat it with a perfect attitude. Have you finished work yet? Under the snow, Yang did not answer directly, but asked with a smile. Just finished work. Junsuke Hanyu replied that she knew the nature and duration of his job, and in fact, they met because of Junsuke Hanyu's job. Are you quite tired? Go have dinner and soak in a hot spring to relax. Under the snow, Yang sent out an invitation. Now. Junsuke Hanyu was somewhat surprised. He found that he really couldn't understand the meaning behind the snow. This guy probably didn't like him very much, he didn't want to see him. Junsuke Hanyu doesn't believe that Yukino is happy and willing to use her own marriage as a bargaining chip. Even if I don't dislike him, I wouldn't be so proactive in showing goodwill, would I? So at the beginning, when Chiba University made hand-in-hand jokes on campus, she didn't understand why she accepted Junsuke Hanyu. I'm in the Fly CAFA under your work building. Junsuke Hanyu turned around to look and happened to see her by the coffee shop window. Smiling dimples are like flowers. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. We are currently in a marital relationship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Junsuke Hanyu wanted to tease his head a bit, but he still resisted this somewhat foolish move and walked towards the coffee shop. His attitude and personality towards Yano under the snow have undergone multiple changes, and now he no longer intends to speculate on what kind of person Yano under the snow is. This guy has a bit of a nerve knife-like vibe, fluctuating in brightness and darkness, which is not something he can understand. As for his attitude, he had already made a decision last night and tried his best to cooperate with the responsibilities stated in the agreement without affecting himself. As for other further matters, let's forget about it. But under the snow, Yang's somewhat proactive behavior made Junsuke Hanyu unsure of how to approach it. To be honest, she didn't quite conform to his aesthetic standards. Junsuke Hanyu liked the type of senior sister with black stockings, big legs, and good figure, and also liked long hair. Under the snow, Yang is a strong and capable woman with short hair, but she is indeed beautiful and has a good figure. So actually, a better approach would be to use this agreement to directly collect both people and money. On the way to the CAFA, various thoughts were swirling in his mind. How did you think of coming over? Junsuke Hanyu sat opposite her and ordered a signature coffee. Come and visit you. Under the snow, Yang Nai returned with a smile. To be honest, Junsuke Hanyu is actually quite afraid of her current state. If she is dissatisfied with this marriage agreement but is suppressed by various considerations such as reality and the future, then Yukiyoshi is actually a quite normal woman. But now she has a tendency towards the worst-case scenario he guessed. Using her marriage as a bargaining chip without any psychological barriers, and solely focusing on a strong family. I don't think we've reached this point between us. Junsuke Hanyu took a sip of coffee, and the bitter taste spread from his taste buds, making him frown uncontrollably. However, he also became more conscious, and he didn't want to turn around, so he spoke directly. Didn't I explain the reason before? We always have to adapt, and since there's still a lot of time before graduation, I estimate I'll be by your side frequently. Under the snow, Yang Nai smiled and said. Besides, legally speaking, we are currently in a marital relationship. She added an explanation. Junsuke Hanyu found that he didn't seem to have anything to refute. I have a slight headache. After the recovery of his memory, he had no great expectations for his life. He wrote about things that would sell well, become famous and earn money, and then enjoyed life. He did things he wanted to do in his previous life but couldn't do, such as visiting rivers and mountains, eating delicious food, experiencing various interesting sports, and so on. So for the person under the snow, Yang Nai, who is currently likely to shatter his idea, he is somewhat avoiding it like a snake. What is the compensation amount for that agreement? Do Junsuke Hanyu remember it was 100 million yen? At the time of signing, Junsuke Hanyu had a clear mind and did not set a target of 1 billion yen. Otherwise, at this point, Junsuke Hanyu would not have thought about whether it was possible to terminate the agreement. Instead, he would have honestly changed his mind and used a handsome man to plan for a win-win situation. Isn't it supposed to have dinner? Right here, Junsuke Hanyu abruptly changed the topic. The cakes and the like here are pretty good. Under the snow, Yang looked very familiar with this. When my younger sister was interning at your place before, I often came here to eat. Noticing Yusheng's gaze, Yoshino explained under the snow. Then you can bring some food, I can do anything that's not too sweet. Junsuke Hanyu nodded. In my memory, the opportunity for him to meet Yukino was because Yukino's sister, Yukino, came for a summer internship at Novel Trend. Junsuke Hanyu was assigned to take her with him at that time, although he had only just started working at that time. Then he was invited to dinner by Yano under the snow, so he met. Tiramisu, snow pear cake, massy sweet. Under the snow, Yang is an old sweetheart who looks at posture efficiency. How is Xue Nisang doing now? It seems like she will soon be in her third year of high school. Junsuke Hanyu casually asked. Waiting for the start of school. Under the snow, the sun returns to the path. The opening time of Neon High School is generally in early April. After returning yesterday, my family and I discussed the possibility of Tokyo's successful bid for the Olympics, and then initiated a relationship to inquire. The Prime Minister has been committed to promoting this matter. Under the snow, Yang said. That's right, Junsuke Hanyu breathed a sigh of relief, and he was relieved to talk about interest-related matters. You should have been paying attention to this all along, right? Junsuke Hanyu is a bit curious. It is normal for people in the construction industry to pay attention to various possible positive news. The 5 are blocking messages. Under the snow, the sun returns to the path. The so-called 5 giants refer to the neon construction industry, including Desheng Construction, Kashima Construction, Shimizu Construction, Dahlan Group, and Zhejiang Government Store. These 5 companies had an annual revenue of over 1 trillion yen in 2004, and compared to other well-known companies such as Kamaga Group and Sumitomo Mitsui Construction, they were just a fraction of them. Junsuke Hanyu is not surprised by this at all. Neon has its own leading enterprises in almost all industries. After all, the market is fixed for a long time and not newly developed. This is normal. From another perspective, it is their support that gives the Prime Minister enough funds to engage in political lobbying, right? Junsuke Hanyu took another sip of coffee. Is applying for the Olympics just a simple list submission? Just like the Oscars and Nobel Prizes, public relations judges and voters are the norm, and in short, they require a large sum of money. However, we don't know the outcome until the dust settles, so there's no need to have too many expectations. Junsuke Hanyu looked at the kitchen counter and didn't see any dishes coming up yet. That's right, under the snow, Yang sighed. Even if the bid is successful, the construction industry will have new market hotspots and new projects to undertake, but it will only last for a few years and then return to its old state. To put it bluntly, industrial upgrading and transformation are the most important. Junsuke Hanyu casually pulled. A major characteristic of online writers is that they can talk confidently about anything, abbreviated as nonsense. It's a bit difficult. Under the snow, Yang shook his head and took a sip of coffee. Really, Junsuke Hanyu actually has a clue, because the construction industry information he found in his previous life's book, Park Street Daily Entertainment, mentioned the direction of transformation of those leading enterprises. However, he doesn't intend to say it, as it doesn't quite match his identity. He is just a person from the literary department, and having a little understanding of economics can be considered erudite. If he knows too much, it's difficult to explain. Speaking of which, where will we go later to soak in hot springs? Junsuke Hanyu still pays more attention to this. Our attitude towards sugar-coated shells is to eat them and throw them back. He remembered the quote from Taizu. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. Novel Serialization Decision. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The trendy editing meetings for novels are held every Friday afternoon, and it may be rare for editors to maintain a weekend job because for editors, whether they take a break or not is not related to the day of the week, and their relationship with the author in their hands is the greatest. Even if they take a break, they still have to work on their day off. Junsuke Hanyu has prepared several novels he intends to recommend, and according to the layout, each editor will have a varying number of recommended spots based on their qualifications, past performance, etc. All the recommended works by the editor, along with the works selected by the editor-in-chief, can roughly form the content of the monthly magazine novel trend. And these contents are not decided in a single editing meeting, because different new works are received every week, and there are always some works that are better, so it is necessary to replace the works decided in the previous week. As a sixth-month newcomer in the workplace, Junsuke Hanyu has 4 recommended works in his hands, which means he can recommend 4 or even more works for everyone to discuss, but only 4 will be approved in the end. In fact, it is not a good practice for each editor to have different recommended quotas, as there are always some editors who have excellent works in their hands. At this point, the role of the editor-in-chief needs to be reflected. At 2:30 p.m., everyone packed up and brought their belongings to the large conference room. As usual, they sat down. The editor-in-chief was always the last to arrive, and he had to wait until everyone in the conference room arrived before coming from the office. So, as usual, let me summarize last week's work status first. The editor-in-chief of Tianyukan is also an old fogey. He talked a lot, including a mixture of facts and chicken soup, to ensure that the people present must always concentrate or they may miss some specific things. So let's start with the matter, starting with the Xuangu editor. The core of an editorial meeting is to select excellent works, while the rest must be done at a later stage. The first work I recommend is a detective novel of the Bunge school, which roughly tells the story of a murder case in a secret room. The plot is very interesting, and everyone can take a look. The screenshot is projected on the big screen. Junsuke Hanyu read with great interest. The writing style is average, and the clues given are somewhat deliberate. The protagonist's personality is not particularly pleasing, and the tricks are quite interesting. He gave a review. But the detective novels of the Bunge school are of high quality as long as they are clever and interesting, and have reasonable descriptions. As expected, the writing needs some refinement. There is an editor speaking. Narrative writing also needs attention. Some editors also said. Junsuke Hanyu listened to their opinions and remained silent, so there was no need for him to get involved. As long as there are always dirty jobs in the workplace, when it comes to the editing profession, the editorial conference that determines the recommended quota is really a battle of swords and shadows. After all, every successfully published work is considered an achievement. Does editor Yusheng have any ideas? Tianyi, the editor-in-chief, suddenly spoke up and asked. The other editors have already had a heated argument with Xian Gu's editor. Xian Gu said that if the plot is interesting, it is a qualified detective novel that can be published. Other editors will discuss and criticize this work from various perspectives. Everyone has their own reasons, and no one can persuade them. Usually at this point, the editor-in-chief sets the tone, but Junsuke Hanyu didn't expect the editor-in-chief to speak up and ask him, is this considered a diversion of trouble? Did he offend this editor-in-chief? Junsuke Hanyu pondered in his mind, but his face remained unchanged. No matter which side you stand on, you will always have a grudge against the other side, but if both sides really don't want to offend you, it's not really good to say that they are friendly. Junsuke Hanyu is not very experienced in the workplace, so he doesn't know what to say at this moment. I think as far as detective fiction is concerned, this work is already qualified, and other details can be modified with the editor's guidance. He just made comments according to his original intention. That's settled. Editor Xuangu, go communicate with this writer and let him make good changes. The editor-in-chief of Tianyi nodded in approval. Junsuke Hanyu is not a fool, he vaguely realized something. From editor to editor, it is rare to recommend works that everyone recognizes. It always requires a lot of verbal criticism, and Junsuke Hanyu does not find it noisy, but rather interesting because everyone does not nitpick, which is too inaccurate. As for editors, when it comes to nitpicking a work, they can always pick out a lot of things. Even if they present a Nobel Prize in literature work to them and tell them it's just a newcomer's work, they can still pick out a bunch of things. So let's have editor Yusheng speak now. Tianyi, the editor-in-chief, presides over memories. Junsuke Hanyu systematically recommended his 4 selected works, 2 swordsman novels and 2 detective novels. He first talked about the strengths, then talked about the weaknesses, and then compared some similar works, covering all aspects. Then other editors began to speak, pointing and pointing. Junsuke Hanyu occasionally refuted his exaggerated words, and the editor-in-chief made a decision. Lastly, while researching, I stumbled upon an alarming piece of data, so I started writing a novel and would like to invite everyone to take a look. Junsuke Hanyu said. The editors on the conference table looked different, and Junsuke Hanyu clicked on his own work and projected it onto the screen. Everyone was reading, and the conference room was silent. Do you have any opinions? Tianyi's editor-in-chief watched them with great interest. A very impressive work, edited by Yusheng, is truly a member of the Faculty of Literature at East University. A thought-provoking theme. Junsuke Hanyu found that after entering the new wave of novels, he seemed to have not been subjected to too much harassment, and occasional arguments were also caused by different opinions in the work, which belongs to the nature of work. But he is not Fukuzawa Yukichi either, there are always people who dislike him. What is the classification of this work? It doesn't quite match the readership of the magazine, does it? And will serializing one's own edited work make people feel that the fairness of the magazine is hindered? Editor Fuchin said. This is an editor who doesn't get along well with Junsuke Hanyu. He has 16 years of experience in novel trendy work and is quite a senior editor. For some reasons, he doesn't like Junsuke Hanyu very much. Also, although the storytelling may seem good, does anyone really care about such things? He continued to supplement. Some people agreed with him, while others refuted him. Junsuke Hanyu kept an eye out and remembered everyone clearly. What do you think, Tianyi editor-in-chief? Junsuke Hanyu looked towards the ultimate owner of the decision-making power. Everyone present has signed confidentiality agreements, non-compete agreements, and there is no such thing as his work being leaked. It's not possible to submit it to another place here. Although what the editor Fuchin said is very reasonable, this work is quite profound and thought-provoking. Excellent works can already cross categories and be read by everyone. Tianyi, the editor-in-chief, said. Include in the scope of serialization standards. He made a decision. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.